Thank you for taking some time today. I know you're extremely busy, and then you have a 5-month-old at home as well. So I get how crazy it is. So the piece that I'm working on right now is actually, it's more based around female leadership. I read up on you, and I can't believe that I missed the boat on what you've been doing. So I mean, it's amazing what you have been up to. So
Well, thank you.
congratulations on all your success so far.
Thank you very much.
So first question I want to get to is when I think about Marianne, I think about marrying science and art. How do these two things kind of balance themselves out for you?
It's interesting. I always considered myself really creative as a kid and a teenager, and
Mhm.
then I went into engineering school, and it kind of beats the creativity out of you.
Yeah,
You're going very much by the math and the science, and we're looking for facts and hard numbers
data.
to prove everything, data.
Yeah.
So when I got out of engineering school, actually, I started that internship with Brown-Forman while I was still in engineering school. But
Wow.
being in the beverage world, and I'm sure it's probably similar in other food industries for chemical engineers, but there's definitely more creativity brought into it. So you're
Mhm.
actually trading off some of the efficiency. Like I would be looking to pull every last bit of alcohol extracted from the starch that I input into the system.
Mhm.
But sometimes you don't fully convert everything to allow the yeast to make different flavors. So it's a trade-off, and it just took a little bit of experience in the industry, being in the distilleries, tasting the products, and learning from these vet engineers in my department to relax a little bit about the numbers and let the liquid kind of be what it wanted to be.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing tandem. So having a creative side and marrying it with science, I think is the perfect kind of combination to go into an industry where it's evolving year to year, and then chefs and mixologists and people who are creating the actual distillate and liquid have to get creative to keep up with the market. So if you remain stale, your product's gonna be stale, your sales are gonna be stale, everything's gonna be stale, and the consumers these days are so perceptive and intelligent that they're going to spot a fake from a million yards away. So that's very cool how you brought those two together. Did you ever think you'd be able to find a career that would allow you to merge both of these things? Because they're like in some aspects they're almost polar opposites.
Yeah, you don't. I think there aren't many industries for a chemical engineer where your boss will say like, okay, make whatever you want today. Use all these caustic chemicals and explosive reactors and just be creative. No,
Yeah,
I
no,
don't think that happens much. No, I when I was in college, I was really thinking that I would go into biodiesel renewable energy, which isn't, I would say, a super creative
no.
field. So I was looking to, my hobbies outside of my career to be my creative outlet, but just very fortunately, everything came together.
So the whiskey side and the spirit side was a hobby prior to going into the internship at Brown Forman.
No, I
No.
was so not in a not a person who appreciated fine spirits. I would
Right.
say my drink of choice was a tequila sunrise, which is a delicious drink. It's just
Yeah.
everything about it hides the tequila.
Yeah.
It's just sweet
Seriously.
and fruity.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it takes a fresh pair of eyes to get to renew what you see in the spirit, because someone could be looking at the same thing for decades and get the same response out of it. You need fresh eyes for that.
I completely agree. I think that was definitely one thing that helped me stand out apart from others in the industry is that I didn't have the experience,
Mhm.
meaning I didn't know that everything was the wrong way or impossible, and I just found innovative ways to make things actually come together and happen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know from the corporate standpoint, sometimes when they are hiring new CEOs, directors, C-level personnel, what they do is they don't hire from the same industry because they don't want the same bad habits to translate
Mhm.
over into what they're doing, especially if they're trying to start an entire new segment and category. So, say tequila is going off the charts out of nowhere, they might not want somebody from the tequila background because it's a whole new customer base. So, yeah, I definitely understand that. So, getting to the crux of this article will be getting out to tens of thousands of females and minority folks in the industry. The majority of the spirits world is male driven and extremely large scale business, publicly traded. Statistically, females are more likely to land a management position, but 90% of them will be kept at mid level. What advice would you give them while they're facing down the barrel a good old boys club.
Hmm. It's a difficult industry to break into at the get-go. So once you land a position, I would say, if spirits is where you want to wind up, and especially on the production side, because that's what I'm most familiar with, starting somewhere that's similar. So whether it be beer or wine or, even like a peanut butter factory, if you want to be in the production area, working with scales and pumps and filtration and that sort of thing will actually, get your feet wet, even though it's a very different product.
Right.
I found it was really interesting, because during my schooling, when I was in college, I considered myself an extreme introvert. I like to joke that I think that most of the people that I was in class with didn't even really know what my voice sounded like until I was forced to stand in front of the room and give a presentation.
Right.
So this was something that was really developed over time. And it was a woman at Brown-Forman named Nancy Warfield that really pushed me to put myself into situations where I would be seen, and in these big corporate environments, if you do, happen to get into a Brown-Forman or Pernod Ricard or some of the other large spirit corporations,
Right.
a lot about networking, visibility. As much as we hate to say it, there are lots of politics that you have to navigate if you want to grow in a corporate environment. I began to get pretty good at it, and I just had lots of opportunities. And I think that it was a lot to do with my work ethic. I wasn't just hoping that people would see me and that things would come to me. I was actually raising my hand and putting myself in situations where opportunities began to arise. So I think my biggest advice is, don't worry about the guys too much. Just, follow your passion and take every opportunity that comes your way, even if you don't feel like you're really ready for it yet. If it's coming to you, then you've got what it takes, and you can develop, even if it's while you're doing it. Because I did that a couple of times, and it was scary, and I learned a lot about myself. But I made it through.
So don't reject anything. Have an open mind. Raise your hand. Take on every opportunity that comes your way. Network. That's gonna go over huge with the people that end up seeing this interview. So that's great that you can be an influence, because you are an influence to a lot of these females that are in the industry. If you raise your hand, you tackle obstacles, and you let people know what you're doing, and you're being proactive, you can knock down a lot of those doors. So
Absolutely.
that's very inspirational. What are some of your hobbies outside of your professional pursuits?
I love being outdoors. That's one thing that I'm getting to do a little bit more and more now that Andy's a little bit older, my daughter, my 5-month-old. But I was a Girl Scout growing up, and it was something that I absolutely adored. I also really love art. If I get an opportunity to go to a museum, I absolutely love museums. So and a lot of people say nature is art. I don't know. It's just it's nice. And my partner Kevin likes to remind me. He said, when you're standing in nature, and it really puts into perspective your place in this world, which is very small. But also it brings you back down to earth. It grounds you, but it also gives you so much appreciation for the opportunities that we do have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think during this COVID stuff, the people who have seized it, the slightest bit of optimistic opportunity, and is like, I'll take my whole family hiking, and that's what we've been doing a lot. And you see the sunrise, and you see waterfalls, and you're like, wow, there is a life outside of an iPad. Who knew?
Right.
So I've enjoyed it. I mean, you make the best out of what's served to you, but yeah, you definitely get to see how minuscule you really are on the grand scheme of things. So that's great. So Brown-Forman Castle and Key project, first female master distiller in Kentucky, Sweetens Cove, all on your terms and timeline. I have a feeling you like a challenge, and you don't mind being out in a tightrope. Are you addicted to the adrenaline, or are you just chasing more success?
I have never been accused of being addicted to adrenaline, that's for sure. I have kind of a funny story. My mom always says I was a very cautious kid, but now that I'm older, I actually see the story that she used in a little bit of a different light. So we were at I think Sunday school one weekend, and she was off somewhere, and they found that I was gone. I had escaped the church, and she found me, walking down the street by myself. A cop had found me and was pulled up beside me, and he, I guess, was trying to coax me into the car so we could figure out, where the heck this kid was from. But I said no, and I kept walking. So the car was just kind of like tracking alongside me, like figure out where she's going. I think I was trying to get to one of my friend's house or something. But my mom takes that story as me being very cautious. I wouldn't get in the car with the guy that I didn't know, or the person that I didn't know. And I took it as I jailbroke the church, and I was going on an adventure. So more so as I reflect on myself and my personality, I'm definitely up for a challenge and a new adventure, but I will do it in a little bit of a measured way, and I definitely want to trust the people that are on that adventure with me. So the position that I had at Brown-Forman, I kept accepting the opportunities that were coming next, and there was a point where I felt like there was someone else kind of driving the train and guiding my career. So that step to Castle and Key was risky. I didn't have any assurance that was even going to get off the ground. I hoped that the guys were trustworthy and that their transparency was authentic, and it paid off. That gamble paid off. It became a beautiful facility, and I'm really proud of the spirits that I had the opportunity to produce there. And I guess being a little bit fearless and just seeing the opportunity for what it was, even if I didn't have the chance to release a bourbon that I made there, having all of that experience, building the whole place, seeing it from piles of trash and broken windows to actually, opening day and inviting guests, there, and not being scared that they were going to fall through the floor. It was an incredible growth and learning opportunity, professionally, but also personally. I went through a lot personally. Learning about myself, what I need, how I'm motivated, that work-life balance, where I really see myself and how I want to impact the industry and the world, being trapped in with one brand, and sometimes trapped is is really comfortable, and it's also really inspiring. But there comes a time, or there came a time for me where I saw a grander future for myself, and nobody at that point is going to take my hand and lead me there. So I have to make some bold steps and make the path myself.
That's amazing. I mean, that speaks to what you were saying earlier, which is raise your hand and kind of create your own destiny. If you wait for something to come to you, it's just not going to happen. No one's going to reach out and say, hey, be the first this, go do this, and break down walls and knock down your glass ceiling. You have to take it by the reins and grab life and create your own opportunities, which is amazing. I mean, some people from the outside might say, well, she's hit the pinnacle of success at this point. Why would she ever leave that? And then again, leave, and it's at the pinnacle. What's going on? And it's just, there's more behind that. You want to create your own destiny, and that's very admirable. That's amazing. And the reason I tied it back to adrenaline is because I know myself, I've left one or two companies where I was doing really well, but when you transition to something new, you're on a tightrope. All that security that you built up, the good name and all that good stuff, it's gone. And you have to be very secure with yourself and your capabilities in order to feel like, hey, no matter what I'm doing, I trust my own abilities. I can do that. So
absolutely.
So who are some of your influencers inside and outside the industry?
There's a lot of incredible women in the industry that I look to as for inspiration as I continue to push forward. When I first was working for Brown-Forman, the women that I was looking to were really more behind the scenes, so people wouldn't probably know who they were, but Brown-Forman has definitely a great culture of diversity. It's just still not who you're seeing in front of the camera, and in some cases it's improved for sure, with Jackie and Elizabeth, and I don't need to point it out specifically, but I think that as I've evolved in the industry, there are more younger women that are coming to me and saying, you've been so inspiring, and I'd love to, pick your brain, or, figure out, how you navigated through the industry. And there were lots of women, whether in the spirits industry or not, that took risks and raised their voice and paved the way for me. So, it's looking at bold women in all kinds of walks of life that took the torch and wouldn't back down. And there is a definitely, I think, a shift happening in our culture. And some of that, you can push and you can push and you can fight, but some of it, you just have to be a little bit patient, and people will continue to open their eyes and say, well, gosh, yeah, that's really not right. Women should be making the same wages. They should be provided the same opportunities, and not just women are seeing those differences for sure. There's a light being shown on lots of this dynamic in lots of different ways.
Females right now are still 83 cents to the dollar, and a lot of, if not all, companies have diversity inclusion implemented into their company. So you having inspiration behind the scenes and on the front lines, and through Brown-Forman and the women behind the scenes, and other women who have not been on the front pages of things, but helped you behind the scenes of these large companies breaking down walls for you. I'm sure there's too many to even think of at the moment. What about personally? Any female strong leaders in your life that you look up to, big influencers for you?
My mom is probably my biggest influence personally. She and my father were married for 21 or 22 years, and when they split up, she had to totally reinvent herself. She went back to college. She got a degree in respiratory therapy, and I saw her, not feel sorry for herself, know that she was capable to learn a new thing and totally start over again. And, her message to me was, don't rely on anybody else. You've got the strength inside of you, and you should be supporting yourself and making your own way. So that's been a large influence on how I've navigated my career.
It's pretty much everything you just talked about with your career, taking chances and not waiting on anybody to hold your hand. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. So shifting a little bit, what do you think about the grassroots success of Uncle Nearest and Fawn Weaver and Tennessee?
I think it's incredible. I think the story behind the brand is absolutely one that needed to be told. The millions upon millions of people that drink Jack Daniels, I am sure, did not know the story. I because I worked for Brown-Forman, I had the book on Jack Daniels and knew that it was a slave that taught him how to distill. But for him to be honored, Nearest Green in this way is just so awesome. And Fawn is the lady to do it. She's a powerhouse and an inspiration, and has been able to handle this explosive growth so well, and the way that she speaks of her team and her partner, and they just built a distillery and a tasting room, and gosh, it's pretty incredible. It was definitely, at the time that she started the brand, a push, I think, to get people to pay attention and to hear this story, because I think it was maybe uncomfortable for some folks. But now, they're taking the bull by the horns, and it's the time to shout this incredible story from the mountaintops. So they've just, I think they're in 50 states. I don't know if she's expanded internationally yet, but I'm sure that's coming soon. It's a great story.
I think, like you were saying before, other females in the industry have opened the doors for you in the same, for the same perspective. You may have opened the doors for other females, such as Fawn, planting your flag in Kentucky, Tennessee, and taking risks and being the first female this and that and just killing it. You might have been inspiration to her. You don't know. And she may look to you for inspiration as well. So can you tell me a little bit about Sweetens Cove and the project with Peyton Manning? Are you able to give me some nitty gritty about that?
So it was really interesting when the two of the 40 owners of Sweetens Cove reached out to me first. They had just been recommended to reach out to me as a blender. They really didn't know anything about me. They didn't know my reputation. They just, had been told by this production facility in Tennessee, where they were holding their barrels, that if they wanted a fantastic blend with a product that they had purchased, that they should reach out to me. That I wasn't the standard blender. So they reached out and we talked about my process, and basically the production facility was ready, because I had a similar conversation with a potential client before that didn't end up working out, just because my process is so detailed and kind of aggressive. So they took samples of every single one of the barrels that Sweetens Cove had purchased, which was 100 of these 13-year-old Kentucky produced bourbon barrels. And then I went to the facility there after they took the samples to do the first round of tasting, and actually tasted each sample twice. And it was interesting. It wasn't public at that time that I was pregnant, but the guys at Sweetens Cove still chose to move forward with me as their blender, awesome. Trusting that I had a process that wasn't controversial, that I could still do my job because I knew that I could. And that was one of the reasons why I wasn't posting, monthly updates on my bump size on Instagram or anything. It's because I knew that people would question whether I was still going to be able to do my job, and I knew that I could shift things in a way that I would be just as effective and safe. So I went through and I tasted all 100 of these barrels, spitting every single one out. and at the end of it, I had all my notes. I had identified a few single barrels, and then it was up to me to put together the blends. They really didn't have any particular parameters. They just said, put the barrels together in the way that they taste the best, which is more difficult than trying to create, a consistent flavor. That's much easier. If you're looking at a batch of barrels and you say, okay, I've got these flavors here, these flavors here, these flavors here, so I need one of each of those in each one of these lots. If I'm looking at, all the flavors that are possible across the stock and trying to create the best outcome, no matter how many number of barrels or, how many number of batches, it's a lot of fun and allows me to be super creative. It takes longer, but it's an inspiring and fun process. And when you taste Sweetens Cove, you'll really get a good picture of my palate preferences, which is pretty errs on the side of balance. I don't want to have just a one note experience. I want it to be, kind of like ups and downs, but a long finish, nice, like creamy mouthfeel, but not just oak. I want oak and sweetness and floral and fruit notes and all the spice, and I want you to get the full gamut of what is possible in a bourbon altogether.
Do they understand what they lucked into?
No.
They're on to their next project. Just great happenstance, I guess.
It's funny. Sweet. Yeah, their PR woman, she's just a fantastic lady. Her name is Valerie Pasco, and she had been setting up all the interviews. And of course, you could reach out to anybody when Peyton Manning is involved. So they were, Vogue and Esquire and all these things. And she was just, blown away. People know who you are, Marianne, and they think really highly of you. And this is actually making my job so much easier and more enjoyable. So it was cool. Yeah, they didn't know who I was, but everybody that they were talking to seemed to. And it's interesting. There was an article just recently, and it was probably one of the nicest short paragraphs that anybody has written about me. And it said, you can't drink Kentucky whiskey without knowing the name Marianne Eaves. And at the end of it, it said, in a move that shocked the entire state, she made the decision to leave Castle and Key. But if her past is any indication of her future, whatever comes next will be even greater. And I just, I'm just so grateful that people feel that way.
I think everyone's kind of on pins and needles trying to figure out what you're doing next. Can you talk about any of the projects you're working on right now?
So I have a lot of exciting stuff going on, and I teased a little bit of it on social media a week or so ago, and I've just been really gnawing on the idea of how do I start to build now the future for my own brand. I'm doing the consulting thing, and I'm hoping for an opportunity to grow my consulting business. I have some incredible clients, Sweetens Cove and Hoops Vineyard, and getting ready to sign a couple more on. I'm got a client who's building the first whiskey distillery in mainland China, which I get to be the one to develop the flavor profile and the recipes for this, first ever produced Chinese whiskey. So that's pretty incredible. Another opportunity to blaze a trail. But I am thinking about, what I want to make and what I want to be known for, and what I really want to do is what nobody else has done before. So I got to figure out how to do that.
You got to wait for the opportunity to present itself.
Start envisioning what that is and making steps toward it. So you might know that I live on the road. So my partner owns a circus, and we move quite often. We live in an RV. So I'm got this crazy idea to build a mobile laboratory that will be on the road too. So I'll still be able to create and innovate and make fun stuff. So I'm thinking about a way to bring people in behind the curtain and into that process. So hopefully it'll all come together.
Yeah, I mean, if you try and force it, it's not going to be correct. I think something's going to present itself to you, and it's going to be amazing, and everyone's going to be floored with it. And I think everyone's very excited to see what that's going to be. Save me a bottle when it does happen.
Done.
What has been the biggest challenge of your career so far?
It's so interesting. When I first got into the industry working for Brown-Forman, the way that people use social media now was not a thing.
Yeah.
It's just the growth and influence that people believe that they have from
Yeah.
behind their computer screen, and the things that people will say sometimes is very challenging. It's been navigating these big career moves as a public figure and trying to not read the comments.
Yeah.
There are so many people that have been supportive and have nothing but wonderful things to say, and are just, like you said, excited to see what comes next. And then
Right.
there are those still that even after over a decade in the industry say, she's inexperienced, she doesn't, she has not earned this position that she's trying to steal from someone else. It's just wild what some people will pull out of their hat. So it's just pushing through and knowing that really those people aren't on my team and they have no influence in my success. If all
Yeah.
they have to say is negative things, they're not going to contribute to what I build next. And why would I take criticism from someone from whom I wouldn't take advice? I think is an important thing that I've learned.
I'm gonna steal that one. But everyone's a tough guy behind the keyboard, right? There's anonymity. You can say whatever you want, do whatever you want, but when you're face to face, it's completely something else. And I mean, you gotta ignore, there's trolls online.
Oh, for sure. And it's just getting worse and worse. Everybody's stuck at home with COVID. I'm getting in fights online. I'm in a social detox right now. I need a week off.
Yeah, seriously. No, I mean, so initially I would delete stuff like that, but now I'm just like, that's fine. However you feel, you feel. That's go with God. That's fine. I'm gonna keep on trying to do my best and doing the best that I can do and kicking ass wherever I go and knocking down walls. If you want to come along for the ride, that's fine.
Hell yeah, that's right.
So my last article, it was very data driven. It was all numbers, and it predicted the trajectory of the industry just using numbers across the globe, and it showed that super premium luxury tier is what's happening and what's going to be happening for the formidable future. Where do you see it going?
I think I agree with that. Absolutely. It just there's not as many people who are interested in actually getting into the production side of the industry. So I think more and more the brands that are getting off the ground, such as Sweetens Cove, they're purchasing product that's already been aged, and the more folks that do that and find success, like selling out in 3 minutes with Sweetens Cove, it just jacks up the prices of that whiskey on the bulk market. So I don't know, maybe I do know, but the first 100 barrels of that 13-year-old Tennessee produced bourbon was a certain price, and then Sweetens Cove is released, and they have all this success, and you go back and find that same age, a 13-year-old Tennessee bourbon again, and it's gone up not 100%, 50%, increase in price. It's just absolutely crazy, and that'll continue to happen as people, make these blends and put them on the shelves and find success. The price of the bulk spirit is just going to continue to rise as well. So I think, anybody that really has a chance of making money, without putting a bottle on the shelf for a couple $100, they're going to have to have the patience and the capital to build a distillery and sit on the product that they've produced until it's ready to go.
Yeah, that's going to be the tough part, because putting the cart before the horse, and you want to capitalize on what the industry's at right now, but you just can't. And it's a catch-22. And yeah, I mean, people who had the foresight to see it coming, they're going to be in luck. The people that didn't, not so much. And the consumers are so smart now that you're not going to be able to fool them with young juice and trying to switch up the label and the price. It's just not going to happen. Yep. So, last question: what is your personal favorite whiskey?
I will probably forever be a huge fan of Woodford Double Oaked. It was the first bourbon that I had that I actually enjoyed, I would say. As I mentioned, I wasn't a bourbon drinker before I started working for Brown-Forman. When the year that I started there, they started the R&D for this new product, this Woodford Double Oaked. So I got to be a part of every single step of that. And then when it was finally ready, I was like, wow, this is really good. It's like dessert. And I definitely have a sweet tooth. So finding the flavors that I love, like chocolate and vanilla and caramel and butterscotch and all of those wonderful things in a bourbon, really started to expand my palate. So I think I owe my palate and where I am in the industry to Woodford Double Oaked.
That's awesome. I mean, there's a lot. So I'm going to go out and grab a bottle and taste it and see if I get the sweet nuances that you do. I do not have the refined palate that everybody else has, but I'll try my best. So Listen, I want to thank you for taking the time today to talk to me. Like I said, this is going to be the main crux of the article that I'm putting out for female leadership, and you're a big part of that. And you're a very big inspiration to not just females, but everybody in the industry that aspires to write their own path and knock down walls and don't take no for an answer. So thank you for what you're doing, and wish you the best and of success.
Thank you so much, Sonny. I can't wait to see how it comes together.